I will say that Kimera has created a very peculiar, very distinctive, very unique product, to be honest. It's something different, and if I have to describe it, I would say instead of calling it ink, I would call it fluid, to be honest. Okay guys, so after finishing this beautiful fog smoothness exercise, this sketch over the last 3.5, 4 hours, which is the way that we like to try the products, because it's the way to do a proper test so that many things happen during the process and that you can do something and then react to how it works and feel different moments of the different stages of the process and everything else, because of course it's not polish it and super refined and super finished, but this is already a decent paint job. I will say that Kimera has created a very peculiar, very distinctive, very unique product, to be honest. It's something different, and if I have to describe it, I would say instead of calling it ink, I would call it fluid, to be honest. But fluid is a concept that is very versatile, because a fluid could be something similar, almost close to a heavy body, or it could be something closer to an ink. And I think that the reason why they call it inks is because from this kind of pigment, because it's vibrant enough and it's thin enough and it's a very stable pigment, you can dilute it as much as you want. So you can use it as a fluid color, or you can use it similar to an ink. It will not give you the same properties to an artistic ink brand, you know, it will not be so slippery, it will not slide so good, it will not have such a strong vibrancy and pigmentation, but it's somewhere there, you know, it's something very intense for a fluid color. It is very creamy, it behaves really well, it mixes really, really well, and it's another advantage, I must say. The colors interact very well among themselves, and I bet that they will do the same with other brands, because when you have experience testing colors and creating those different products, you can notice this from the very first reactions. From the perspective of the process itself, I would say that I was not very comfortable in the first, let's say, 20-30 minutes, because this is not what I was expecting from something that is supposed to be a traditional ink, I would say, or at least the inks that I have in my memory from how the inks that I used to use from artistic brands. But after you get used to how it works, I must admit that it turns something very comfortable and very pleasant. You know, I enjoyed the process a lot. They feel versatile. You can do any kind of technique with them, from super thin glazes to thicker, thicker, more coverage techniques, you know. And in general terms, they work really well. There are a few colors that I will probably not, they will not be my favorite, like the white, but just because as a fluid, white is great, to be honest, is one of the best I've tested. But as an ink, I was expecting something different, something more intense with more punch. But that being said, this indigo, cold yellow, magenta, and sepia, from the range of colors that they have sent me, this works really well. I really like them. I really like the vibrancy, the tone, and how they behave in mixing. Because when you mix colors, especially when you are a mixer, when you create colors from scratch, most of the times when the pigments are not so good, or when they are very matte, or when they are chalky or very earthy, they turn moody, they turn dull, not intense enough. And in this case, this didn't happen. The mixtures were vibrant enough and the colors were pretty rich, and the finish is not satin, which is another thing that I will disagree, because again, this is like fluidity, like satiness between matte and glossy. There are so many steps of different stages of satin that for some people would be satin and for some people will be not too matte, let's say. So to me, this is not satin, this is not too matte. These are not ultra matte paints. This is something in between matte and satin. That's what I can say from that. That being said, in my conclusion is they behave really well, they work really well, and yeah, in general terms, I think that it's a product that deserves a try, because it's a good product, it's high quality pigments, and you will probably enjoy if you use them in addition to your own collection of paints. What about the palette? To be honest, I'm not a palette guy. I normally do it with any super cheap tray or anything like this, as I have already explained. But probably to bring it to my trips, to do my workshops, I'll probably use this, because among all the palettes I've seen, this one is the biggest, or at least one of the biggest. So the size is pretty decent. Also, this is from my own perspective. I normally use a palette that is bigger than this, right? But it's not a palette that I feel uncomfortable, right? The material quality feels good. It has some additions, some elements that are interesting from an aesthetical point of view. I really like it. It has some details that help it to keep it in good shape, so to avoid fungus and to avoid problems with the sponge. So in general terms, it's a good palette. It works well. If you are a palette guy, you will definitely like it. And if you are not, you will not change your point of view because of that. So yeah, it's a good palette. And about the brushes, the one that surprised me the most, because in general, they work well. They are good brushes. Maybe not the kind of shape and size that I'm used to, because I'm used to work with super big brushes, maybe like a 5 or 6, even an 8, and I feel comfortable with bigger sizes. But in this case, I gave a try to the super tiny one, the 000, and I was super surprised, to be honest, because it behaves super great, which is something that I would never expect, that a super tiny brush will please me. But in this case, I've been using it for a long period of time during this beautiful sketch. Yeah, it was a great test. Indeed, if I need a super tiny brush, maybe at some point for doing a super microscope detail, I would use that. But even for filigrees or something like that, it behaves pretty decently. So I am very surprised with that tiny brush. And in general terms, the experience was very satisfying. I have enjoyed it, and I think that all those products are high quality products that they deserve a try for sure.